Jai Hind, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I am extremely fortunate, lucky, and privileged to have such an illustrious personality as General J.J. Singh, who needs no introduction at all. You all know him. He has been one of the finest and the most illustrious chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army. He's been one of the most illustrious governors under whose regime, as the governor of Arunachal Pradesh, we saw a lot of improvement, a lot of good things happen. And I was very fortunate to have served as a young captain when General J. Singh was the chief of the army staff. I had first met General J. Singh in the year 2005 at the artillery reunion, thereafter in Nagaland when he had visited 3 Corps. My father, who was appointed as the deputy chief of the army staff by the chief of the army staff, General J. Singh, who subsequently went on to become the governor of Arunachal Pradesh on 27th January 2008. Sir, thank you very much for spending time, and it's wonderful and honor to be in conversation with you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I'm pleased to be part of your show today, and I will share with you my life's experiences, and perhaps they will help the reader to know me better.
Sir, superb, sir, superb. Sir, let's talk about your early childhood, because you come from a generation of soldiers. Your grandfather fought in the First World War. In fact, you epitomize what they say is growing every generation. Your grandfather joined the army as a private, as a sepoy, and went on in his career. Your father became an officer, you were the colonel, and you became a general. You became the chief of the army staff, and thereafter the governor. Sir, and you've had your schooling from various, being an army brat, from Secunderabad, from Jammu, from St. Mary, from different schools. So tell us a bit about your schooling, your early childhood, sir.
Yes, Muhammad, I had an upbringing in the army environment, and I grew up hearing tales of the First World War. This was called the Great War, from my grandfather, and also stories about World War II from my father. So it was but natural that the olive green attracted me to its fold as quickly as I could, and I joined the National Defense Academy in my first attempt.
Sir, and tell us a bit about the story that you would have heard from your grandfather. And of course, needless to say, what inspired you to join the army, we all know. It was the inspiration from your previous generations. But tell us about a few stories which we all know. The First World War started in the year 1914 on the 28th June, when a Serbian nationalist had assassinated the heir to the Austria-Hungary Empire, and in Bosnia. And a month later, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. And that is when other nations joined in, and America joined in the war much later on in the year 2000, in 1917, when 16, 17, 18 March, when the Germans attacked and drowned 3 American ships. That's the time when President Woodrow Wilson announced war on Germany and stepped into the First World War. So let's hear a few of the anecdotes your grandfather must have told you about the First World War, sir.
Yes, Muhammad, my grandfather was from first 67 Punjabi, as they called them, and he served with the 6th Indian Division, which was the Pune Division, and they were moved to Mesopotamia, and along the famous river which flows through Iraq today. In those days, it was Mesopotamia, and they were very successful in capturing many places right up to Kutel Amara and beyond. But I think eventually they overstepped and overreached themselves from logistic support, and they were surrounded by the Turkish army, and the whole division was surrounded and in a siege condition for almost 5 to 6 months. So grandfather used to tell us stories that how they managed to survive in that very difficult situation where first the rations were brought down to half scale, then to quarter scale. Finally, they were asked, okay, you want to survive, you have to eat the meat of your mules. And for which, since 6th Pune Division had 3 to 4 Maratha light infantry battalions there, um, they had to ask the Maharaja of Kolhapur in those days that can they Maratha soldiers eat the flesh of the mules. And yes, the Maharaja eventually gave his assent. He said, in conditions of war, it's better to save yourself, and therefore you can consume the meat of your mules. So they did that, but eventually they all had to surrender and they went through great hardships. My grandfather, he was wounded very severely in his right elbow. He got a machine gun burst, because of which he had to lose his right arm. And he was evacuated by the Swiss Red Cross and taken to the south of France to get for convalescence in the hospitals which were made during World War One in the south of France. So he used to tell us stories every evening before dinner. First, we said our prayers, and then we had our food. And after that, he would regale us with a lot of interesting stories. There was a war where comradeship was there, and I call it the bonds of blood because my grandfather and the Maratha soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder, not knowing each other's language or their way of life, but they fought like brothers in arms. And it's a coincidence that I went into the Maratha Light Infantry and I commanded the battalion which fought 70 years back in that war with my grandfather's battalion. So, what I'm saying is, they told us while they were recuperating in the hospitals. So, in Punjabi, my grandfather said, Kaka, tusi ki dekhya hai? My dear kids, what have you seen? We, in those days, in the hospitals on the Mediterranean coast, we saw Asi Mema Nangian Handiyan Dekhiyan. That means saying that we saw the white women bathing in the nude over there. So it was quite scandalous, but very interesting to know. Not only that, he told us about how he fought and how he got injured and the traditions of the army in those days. My father told us stories about the World War II, and hearing all these stories and living in army environment, we grew up seeing movies in the cantonments in those good old type of movie cinema, which were roving from one cantonment to the other and showing films. And we saw films like From Here to Eternity and To Hell and Back, and therefore it became our passion to don the olive green and fight for our nation. And that's why in the first attempt, I went into the NDA, qualified, and reached Khadakwasla. And thereafter, of course, grandfather's words were when I was commissioned that, Beta, which regiment have you got? Because as an infantry soldier who was boarded out after the war of being a medical low category, he didn't know anything other than infantry. So I said, मैनू मराठा लाइट इन्फेंट्री मिली है कहंदा बड़े तगड़े हुंदे ने they are very doughty warriors. So what I asked him is, how do you know? I didn't know the story of the siege of Kutelamara as well and the battalions which took part. So therefore I asked him which Paltons were there, and he told me that the 5th Maratha Light Infantry was there, and they fought shoulder to shoulder. And it is a coincidence that 70 years later, I was given the command of 5th Royal Marathas. So I don't know how it happens, but this is destiny. And I feel that the bonds of blood, which is written in my book also, A Soldier's General, were, shall I say, created at that time.
So I had the fortune of attending your book launch at the Imperial in the year 2012 at Janpad, the Soldiers General. And that was the time, and your talk still rings into my ears. The way you described it was phenomenal, sir. It was phenomenal. It's one of the gentlemen, most of us would have read The Soldiers General by General J.J. Singh. But those of you who have not, it is available online in your leading book and nearest bookstores. Go and grab a copy right now, and trust you me, if you have not read The Soldiers General, we'll subsequently come to the second book as well on the McMahon line. But if you have not read the first book or The Soldiers General, you are definitely losing out on something great in life. Sir, just tell us a bit more about after you joined NDA. How were your days at the National Defense Academy as a cadet, sir?
I'd like to show your readers my first book, The Soldiers General, and of course, the second book which you referred to is the McMahon line. This is just to tell uh, your viewers that I had a very hectic military career and I faced many storms. I think all of us have had similar experiences, but I was fortunate in having had some very, I would say, important assignments, and in which I was able to know more about how finally decisions are taken at the national level, being the ADGMO, additional DGMO in the MO Directorate during the Kargil War. So I know exactly what happened during that war, how we fought back after being initially surprised by the Pakistanis. And we had them on their knees in 3 months' time from unassailable positions, which the Pakistani generals were telling their government that there is no way Indian army can evict us from there. But that was a great victory. But initially, we did have setbacks, but that is part of any war. If you take initiative like the Pakistanis took initiative to do that, something unexpected, but then they did not think it through. So today, when analyzed by professionals both in India and Pakistan, including what I have written in my book, it was a great misadventure by General Pervez Musharraf without thinking through how they will go into the support of their soldiers who are out in the front without artillery support, without air support. And if the Indian army reacts, which we reacted so ferociously, what will they do? So they had no hope of survival except to surrender or to get killed. And finally, America came to the rescue of Pakistan by saying if they agree to withdraw behind the ceasefire line, let them go, because you will also suffer some casualties. But I think our view was, now that they have come down on their knees, let them accept that they have been defeated in detail. But whatever it is, I knew how we fought the war because I was in the planning group at the MO Directorate, and actually the ADG MO is the hands-on man when the nation is fighting a war. So I knew exactly what happened. So that also gave me an view of how decisions are made at the national level. I had at least 4 or 5 major briefings in our military operations room, attended by the Prime Minister at that time, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, and many others, and the 3 chiefs. So those briefings gave us a lot of insight into what happens at the national level when there's a crisis like Kargil. Not only that, I handled in my career the Siachen Glacier issue, both as ADGMO and then as the chief. And I took the prime minister there and I told him that you are and your advisors in the foreign ministry are saying, let's make it a mountain of peace. I said, if you do that, and the Pakistanis renege from the agreement, then it will be impossible for us to retake these heights, which we are now controlling. and therefore politically the fallout will be difficult for you to accept. And he accepted my advice. I said, unless the Pakistanis sign on maps and authenticate the present positions and on air photographs and other means, we will not withdraw from where we are. And that is the stand of the Indian Army till now. So Siachen was another experience at first hand which I saw and experienced. Then I'm talking about as a brigade commander. In Kashmir, of course, I had 2, 3 tenures, but as a brigade commander, I was in one of the brigades which was doing only counter terrorism. Today, what we have the RR units doing, it was a role given to me because I was the Corps Reserve Brigade commander. And we were sometimes in Anantnag, sometimes in Baramulla, sometimes in Ori. I had no headquarters. I kept, like a roving military organization, seek and destroy the terrorists who tried to enter India. So I had a very interesting career. Besides that, I did also commanded 9 Infantry Division, which was responsible for defense of Punjab, and then the first Strike Corps at Mathura, and that is, as you know, meant for offensive tasks across the border. And this all this enriched my experience of a military leader, and also I saw many things happening, including the Parakram. Parakram was almost, we were almost given the green signal to go into operations, and I was the Strike Corps commander. You can imagine what dreams we had. But
Absolutely, sir.
unfortunately, again, America came to the rescue of Pakistan to say, if Pervez Musharraf agrees not to escalate the matter, please do not take action against them, because they had attacked our parliament. So Pervez Musharraf gave many promises, including कि हम अपने ज़मीन से किसी दहशतगर्द को नहीं आने देंगे हिंदुस्तान में. But you know how the truth is that their words don't match what they say, and their acts are against, exactly opposite of what they promise.
Exactly, sir. And that's the reason they are finding themselves to be in the state they are in today. And the whole world is watching exactly what fun is happening in Pakistan. It's literally a circus, a drama that's happening in Pakistan right now, sir.
Yes,
And
exactly.
General Pervez Musharraf is not even in a position to come back to his own country. In fact, if you see again, sir, you take back history, it was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto who was brought in by the Pakistan military again. He was brought in by General Ayub Khan. In fact, you
Yes,
see Nawaz Sharif, who was brought in by General Ziaul Haq. And
yes.
General Zulfikar Bhutto was executed by the Pakistan military, in fact, through a High Court order. So that is the kind of state they are in, sir. You said it very, very correctly, very, very rightly, sir. Sir, you were commissioned in 1964. So in
Yes.
1965, India went to war with Pakistan. In 62, they had gone on war with China. You were in academy at that time as a cadet. So tell us, what feeling was going through your mind when you were a cadet in 1962? That I wish I would have, obviously you would have felt that I wish I was commissioned and I was sent for the war. Tell us about your experience about in 1962 when you were a cadet, and
Yeah.
thereafter in 65, sir, where you were deployed and such things, sir.
That's right, Mohammed. We all felt that we should fight this war, and we should give Pakistan or teach them a lesson. Unfortunately, my battalion was at that time positioned in Nagaland fighting against the Naga rebels. And the Naga movement is carrying on even till today. It was a serious situation. We were not allowed to be moved from Nagaland into the Western theater. So we did not partake in the 65 war in the Western theater. But all the same, we did a very commendable job in countering the Naga terrorists. We used to call them hostiles in those days. And we were able to eliminate a complete gang which came from China with arms and equipment fully loaded. And we were able to apprehend them when they came into one of their camps, and we surrounded that camp. It was the greatest success story against Nagaland's uh, terrorism campaign, or you can say counterinsurgency campaign, which we launched against them, was the most successful operation of that kind. As a result, General Manik Shah, who was the Eastern Army commander, he got a thumping uh, ovation wherever he went. And not only that, it was discussed in the parliament. And I think it was one of the reasons which catapulted him into the chief of army staff's position. And after that, you know very well what happened in 1971 with Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. He became a field marshal after the war, but he was chief of army staff before that. So we did a role assigned to our unit in Nagaland during that period of the 65 war. But we were aware of what was happening on the Western Front.
Right, sir. Sir, you'll be happy to know I speak fluent Nagamese, sir. The way I speak English or Hindi or Urdu, I would speak Nagamese like that, sir. If I had the honor of meeting you in 2016 in Nagaland, when I was ADC to GOC 3 Corps,
Yes, yes. So
sir,
that's it.
sir, sir,
That's the
and
way life is.
sir, and your experience in the 1971, sir.
Yes. My experience of 1971 was, again, I was with the battalion, but then in 1970, I got posted to the intelligence school at Pune as an instructor. And during the war, we were moved to units where there were deficiencies of officers, or in headquarters where they needed key people in key appointments. And I, in my turn, was posted to the headquarter Western Command, the tactical headquarter, which was at Jalandhar. And I worked in the General Staff branch, and I helped them with my expertise in intelligence by deciphering various messages, aerial photographs, and so many other things. So I think I was not fortunate enough to be in the front line, as they say, with the battalion, but I did my task given to me in the command headquarters where we were attached. But interestingly, once the war ended, we were again sent to the prisoner of war camps all over. I was sent to Dhana, and in that place there were something like 2,000 or so, or 3,000 Pakistani prisoners. And I had a chance to interrogate some key personnel among them. And what was interesting is one of the 2ICs of a battalion, against whom our regiment's 1st Maratha Light Infantry did extremely well in the Battle of Jamalpur. And he told me he had it written it in his diary. They maintain very good diaries. In Pakistan Army, the tradition of maintaining a diary is very good, but it also lets out their secrets when they get captured by the enemy. So from that diary, I took off 4 pages in which they described the action of 1st Maratha Light Infantry, how they encircled them, and how brilliantly they cut off their rear, and they had no other way but to fight their way back, and they lost a lot of casualties. Our CO 1st Maratha then was Lieutenant Colonel Brar, who got Veer Chakra and who later on rose to be the Army Commander, Eastern Command, General Brar, KS Brar. And I would say that man told me, the 2IC of 27 Baluch, I don't forget the names and and the units. And he said, Sahab, आपकी जो फतेह हुई उसके 2 कारण थे. एक तो आपकी जो फौज की लीडरशिप है वो हमारे से कई गुना अच्छी है, और दूसरा आपके साथ अवाम थी, पूरा अवाम आपके साथ था, इसलिए हम कभी कामयाब नहीं हो सकते थे. So I think he had a lot in what he said. We were able to win the hearts and minds of the Bengali people, and also we had very good leadership, both at the higher level, strategic level, operational level, and at the front with our junior officers showing their bravery and their leadership. Of course, we did many things which they never expected, including using helicopters to cross the rivers, because they thought the rivers were absolutely like oceans. You can't cross rivers in that part of the world. They are very wide. You can't see the other bank from one side. Similarly, the Brahmaputra is also so wide. So therefore, using helicopters, using country craft, and crossing and giving them surprise after surprise, made them surrender. And we finished that war. It was called the 13 Days War. So I think that great glory came to us because of the reasons I've just mentioned.
Sir, sir, one question comes to my mind, and many youngsters who would want to join the army, who are really inspired by you. In fact, many youngsters would want to ask, so were you one of the youngest cadets in your course?
Yes. Well, as I told you, Muhammad, as soon as I graduated from school, in those days we had to do the 10th standard or matriculation level of education before entering the NDA. And I appeared for the NDA and I got through, and I was the youngest in my course practically, one or two, barring one or two others. So we also got a curtailed training in IMA because of the after effects of the 62 war.
Of
So,
course, sir.
really speaking, I was commissioned before 19 years of age, 18 years and 10 months. And it was the Bacha Commission, as they call it. But then that is the way I was commissioned in the army. And I also had to struggle at every stage to prove that I'm as good as people who are 2 years my senior in age, in physical condition, also being street smart. That includes the National Defense Academy, where though I entered on the top 20 positions based on the UPSC exam, I still have the newspaper cutting of that. In those days, the results were announced in the newspapers. So that was standing of the army and getting into the NDA, and in which I was in the top 20. But then, being 2 years junior, you can imagine a, a student from class 8 competing with class 10 uh, is difficult for him to match up. So, anyway, no regrets. When it was 25 years of age for me, anybody who was 27 or 28 didn't make a difference because then I was fighting on level ground. You understand? A fair playing field. And then I started showing my capabilities and results in action, as also in leading troops, and also in the various benchmarks which are there, the junior command course, the staff college where I went in with a competitive vacancy. I was the junior most in the course. Then I went and commanded the battalion, and the battalion command was the cutting edge for me professionally because it was in Arunachal Pradesh. It's destiny that I landed up as a governor in Arunachal Pradesh so many years
Exactly, sir.
later.
Sir,
But at
sir.
that time, I didn't have any idea. We went into a surgical strike. In those days, this word was not used. In fact, we were told
Transportally, sir.
not to talk about it. We went
Sir.
into a neighboring country, destroyed the terrorist camps, and killed a few of them, captured some of them, and we came back where the battalion got a number of decorations, and I also was given the Vishish Seva Medal. It was very rare for Lieutenant Colonel COs to have been given that award. It was a combat VSM, not a distinguished service VSM, but they didn't have a distinction in that time in giving these awards. But I was decorated, and I was the first in my batch again to go to the higher command after commanding the battalion. So,
Sir.
with continuous performance like this, and it will interest your viewers to know that between the time I did my staff college exam and by the time I commanded the battalion and I went for higher command and then on a staff appointment, in about 10 years or 12 years, I had 10 postings. So I didn't know. My children grew up in an environment where they had no permanent friends, no permanent schools. So if we were packing our bags for an overnight picnic, they would say, Dad, are we getting posted again? So that was the kind of life our children saw. But touch wood, grace of God, they are doing very well today. But they are all Kendriya Vidyalaya students, both of them, a son and a daughter. But I'm telling you what I experienced. And when you change your units, you change your appointments, and you go from one place to the other, you have to re-establish yourself. And yes, you have to work and you have to produce results to be able to stand out amongst the crowd. As you know, the army, the pyramid is very, very steep. So every three colonels between them, only one makes a brigadier, and every three brigadiers, perhaps one point something makes a major general. So this is the way one has to fight your way through, not literally fighting. I believed in a fair and level playing field. My performance should tell the superiors that I'm capable or I'm better or not. And I always had one thing in my mind, that when we joined the battalion as second lieutenants, we said if we are lucky enough to command this battalion, then the future beyond that is a bonus. This is a word I've used in my book as well. I believed in it. And I fortunately got to command the same battalion where I was commissioned, the Ninth Maratha Light Infantry. And then, of course, after
And
that,
so
as I said,
one more, as destiny would have it, you also commanded the 9th division, the 9 div
yes,
and 9
yeah,
flag.
this.
Sure, sure.
You're right. 9 Maratha, 9 division, but before that, 79 Mountain Brigade. So the number 9 figures in my life, and I'm born on 17th September. Incidentally, that's the date of birth of our Prime Minister also. He is born on 17th September. So
Sure.
I don't know. We both share some qualities, perhaps. I am privileged to be having sharing a birthday with him. And not that, somehow life has been extremely touch and go in many places. Like most of our army carriers, most of my friends, colleagues have passed through critical stages where it was touch and go. Luckily, I found uh, good superiors, higher commanders who held my hand when things went wrong. It's not that nothing went wrong, but then they say the guy is good. And I'm telling you frankly, my belief is, generally speaking, that army does not let go of a good guy in a hurry. So that's the way I looked at it. And of course, Napoleon made a famous statement. He wants his generals to be lucky. So what he meant was they should know their job, they should be professionally very good, they should do everything right and prepare well for the battles and train his command well, have a high level of motivation. But at the same time, that little 5-10% of luck, damn luck, should be with him, so that he can be successful every time.
True,
Well,
sir. True, sir.
so some of us also have dame luck favoring us when the crisis is there, and I feel that God came to my help. I'm not religious minded that way, but I'm a spiritual. My spiritual strength prevails when I'm in thick trouble, when I'm in difficult situation. I believe that you have to have this moral and also spiritual strength in you, and that comes from your belief that what you were in your previous life. I believe I was one of those warriors fighting for a cause for defense of the country, particularly in the troubled northwest frontiers of India, Punjab.
Sir, so that's very well put across by you, sir. Very well put across by you. Sir, tell us any special memory you would have as a child growing up, which you, of course, was it always one of your ambition only to join the army and you had no other option, you had no other planning that, okay, I will probably do law, engineering or something else, or you are so focused 100% that I have to be a soldier only, sir?
Yeah, like all other children of our age when we were growing up, we had fascination of making girlfriends. So I fancied a small girl about my age, and on the road outside her house, I wrote with white chalk ILY, and that was enough trouble for me. I got a nice sound thrashing, but then that is what one accepts in life. and we had nothing. I met that lady later on in life. I said, "Do you remember I got a thrashing because of you?" But yes, we used to be very adventurous.
Sir,
I feel sorry for children of today who are glued to their laptops or their mobile phones. They don't see outdoors. They don't know what the outdoor life is. We used to go on berry hunting. हम जो बेर बोलते हैं ना, तो बेर
जी sir.
ढूंढने के लिए बबीना में जंगलों में बहुत बेर के पेड़ होते हैं. Many berry trees there. So we used to go for bear hunting, or we would use catapults to, hit at our targets, which we wanted to do. And one of those very dangerous thing which I did was I catapulted into a huge beehive,
Oh
and
my
all of
goodness.
us got attacked by the bees, and we became like sumo wrestlers. Our faces had swollen up, and that's what it is. But we grew up with all those things. Yeah, we had a normal outdoor oriented life and simple living, standard food, and that's the way we grew up.
Sir, talking about outdoor life, you are avid golfer, sir. In fact, you and Mrs. JJ, both of you are avid golfers. Sir, tell us, when did you pick up golf initially, sir?
Yeah, very good question. But before that, I'll tell you the adventure spirit in me uh, also was manifested when I was told by the CEO, you go to the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute and go for the basic mountaineering course. So I loved it because my instructor was late Tenzing Norgay in HMI Darjeeling. And I don't think many people are alive today who were privileged to have been trained by him. And I got an A grade in that course. And if you get an A grade in those courses, you're automatically sent next year on the advanced course. So CEO said, "What Tikram have you done?" I said, "Sir, I stood high up in the course with an A grading. So naturally, I was recommended for them for the advanced course, and Army headquarters has perhaps decided to send me. And I got an A grade again in the advanced mountaineering course. So I was cut out to be a mountaineer in the sense I may not have been a commando, but in the altitudes, you don't need to be a commando. You have to have a head which can sustain itself and your balance in rarefied atmosphere with oxygen-less air. So I proved to be that, and I was recommended for Himalayan expedition. There was expedition for Mount Everest coming up in 2 3 years, and perhaps with my reports and my results, I would have made it to that expedition and may have possibly gone to the Everest. But when they asked me, "Are you a volunteer for the Everest expedition trials?" I asked my wife. We were newly married, and I said, "Do you want me to say yes or no?" She said, "It's your decision. I'll go by it." I gave it a cool thought. I was an instructor in intelligence school, Pune, and I said, "I didn't join the army to be a mountaineer. I'm in the infantry. I'll be climbing a lot of peaks as it is. I'll be in forward areas along the Himalayas and in Kashmir. So therefore, climbing will be part of my life." So I did not opt to go for those trials, and I instead continued to serve as a professional soldier and infantryman. So
Sir,
therefore, coming to your question about golf, well, outdoor activities were something which I loved. Adventure is something which I loved. And as I grew up in the army, wherever I found, because in infantry, you rarely had places where there was golf. So it was only later on in life. Though I started in Pune Intelligence School itself, learning the basics from GT Chaudhary, who was a services champion, and Sarabjit Sandhu was another services champion over in Pune in those days. So I learned from an interesting thing, which I will say, because yeah, professional things are there in my book, and otherwise I'll talk about it also if you want. But when I met my wife, we decided, she asked me two things. She said, "I hope you don't play golf." And the second thing was, "I hope you don't play bridge." So when I told her I do both, then she was very disappointed. Maybe her friends had told her that these two games are bad for marriage. Anyway, I thought about it, and next time we met, I said, I'm going to propose a deal that I will give up one of those two things which you don't want me to do, provided you join me in the other. So she said, which is that one? I said, golf. So she joined me in golf. And whenever we had an opportunity to play, we played. But in the army, as I grew up and other in higher ranks, I found that this is a game I can continue even in my late 70s and 80s. And I'm playing golf 2, 3 times a week even today. And my wife is a better golfer than me. She
Sir,
learned it
very
and
well
she's
said.
good.
Very well said, sir.
So that
I've
is the
seen
way.
Mrs. JJ play, sir. In fact, in the year 2005, at Devlali, sir, the Temple Institute at the golf course over there for the artillery reunion, Mrs. JJ and you had come there, and there was this golf tournament held, and we saw ma'am hitting a long ball, sir, very long ball, and the officers took
Sorry.
six. And in fact, sir, I must tell this to you, sir. My father, you know, he's an avid golfer as well. My mother drew the inspiration from Mrs. JJ Singh. She said, Mrs. JJ, she accompanies her husband for golf, and I've also learned golf. And that is how my mother also picked up golf, and now she's playing a very good handicap, sir. Sir.
Well, Muhammad, that is one. It was my passion, and I also encouraged youngsters to play. Mission Olympics was one of the sports was golf. In that Mission Olympics, catch them young, and not only that, I was very much interested in shooting. I got an AXI in weapons course because I got outstanding results marksman in shooting. I used to shoot regularly and I used to encourage shooting. And today I'm very proud to know that there is a General J.J. Singh annual shooting competition in Mao every year. And
Of
every
course.
command sends a team for that. Well, that is the biggest compliment I can get, that I have left a legacy where shooting is going to be encouraged. I said it is our bread and butter, particularly for the infantryman. And if we can't be good shooters, there's no use. And therefore, we now find that shooting competitions are held in all formations, and our soldiers are doing well, and we take the better of the opponent in any encounter.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, you spoke about Mission Olympics. In fact, I just had a word with Mrs. Padmanabhan a few days back. I was speaking to her on the phone, and she was telling me about, when General Padmanabhan decided to induct the same thing, the same word she had used. I mean, so it was like a deja vu to me. Catch them young, In 2001, when General Padmanabhan decided to induct the sports school in the army, like Mission Olympics, and Neeraj Chopra, in fact, he is a product of that. The army trained him to win the Olympics even before he was a teenager. And today he won an Olympic gold for the country.
Well, yes, Muhammad, a chief sets an example. And if I encourage outdoor activities and sports, and I also encourage mountaineering, because during my time, all women's expedition went to Everest and succeeded, and all army expedition with primarily the backbone was the Maratha regiment, because the team leader was a Maratha officer from four Marathas. I think I encouraged mountaineering as well. So many who climbed Everest. That's the way life was for us. Feel that army always known for leading in sports, and now we must come back to that position. Milkha Singh was an army man, and at that time I saw him grow. This is one of my childhood experiences in Secunderabad, where he came as a langri, a cook, helper in the langar. Uh, and my father was his OC of the training company where he was. My father found out he has good strides, he can run well, and he groomed him. And we saw him run barefoot. He ran barefoot when we were kids. We saw him, and he won all races 100, 200, 400. And then from, I think in 56, 57, when I was a 12-year-old, I saw him there. And then from there, he became a national champion and Rome Olympics and all that. So what I'm saying is, army must focus on sports because it builds camaraderie. It makes you a better human being. It makes you learn to win in grace and lose in grace. You know, that's why sports are necessary and bonding
Uh,
which we have.
Very well said, sir. To win in grace and to lose in grace. Wow. I mean, what pearls of wisdom. What words are these? Sir, it reminds me of these golden lines by Rudyard Kipling. This poem, If, which you wouldn't have read in NDA also. Where
Yes,
Rudyard Kipling writes, if you can permit me, sir, I'll recite a few lines if you can permit me on that, sir.
yes, Muhammad,
Sir,
I would like to agree with you.
sir.
And I
So,
also say, in our career, there is something which makes you stand out. I believed in doing unconventional methods of achieving my aim. The approach would be different. It would not be everybody's route is not my route. It's not bhed chal. I won't follow the safe path to next rank. I will try and do something which is unexpected. It will give surprise to the other side, whether it's peace or war, and it will also get results with less casualties and faster timing. You can achieve your objective with less casualties and earlier if you achieve total surprise. So that's how I lived my life, and I believe that it has helped me do better than my colleagues, and therefore, justifiably, the system found me good enough to be right at the top.
absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So, sir, when you mentioned these lines, to win with grace and lose with grace, it's remind me of two things. One was Rudyard Kipling's poem If, and other was the famous letter which you would have read, of course, Abraham Lincoln's letter to his son's teacher when his son was starting school. So Abraham Lincoln wrote to his son's teacher, if you put permit, please, I will cite a few lines of that. He wrote, "My son starts school today. It is all going to be strange and new to him for a while, and I wish you would treat him gently. It's an adventure that might take him across continents, all adventures that probably include wars, tragedy, and sorrow. So, dear teacher, will you please take him by his hands and teach him things he will have to know? Teaching him, but gently if you can. Teach him that for every enemy there is a friend. He will have to know that all men are not just, all men are not true, but teach him also that for every enemy there is a friend. For every it's a great letter, sir. And in that he's mentioned about teach him how to gracefully lose and to enjoy winning when he does win. This is exactly what you had said, sir. So it
Yes,
is
Muhammad, if I have to live my life again, I'd live it as an army man. And over the years, I believed in working hard. There are no shortcuts. You have to lead by example. Next is that if you enter in a battle, enter with the determination that you will win. And not only will you will win by a knockout. It should be a decisive victory, like 1971 was or Kargil was. And there is a credo of a warrior and a winner. I believed I'm a warrior for a cause, and hence God has been kind. I've been a winner too. And one of the 10 most popular sayings or important sayings in the Indian Army, if you look at the Google, they will say one of them is my statement to say you fight to win and win with a knockout, as there are no runners up in war. So this is quote
very well.
unquote. It's there in the Google. I was surprised because somebody brought it to my notice. And I'm happy. This is a very good message for soldiers that when you are given a challenge, you enter the battlefield with the determination to win, but it should be a decisive victory because you're prepared for it, you're well led, you're well trained, you're well equipped, and therefore the victory will be a knockout or should be a knockout, not on points. So that
Very
has
well
been
said,
my
sir.
philosophy.
Very well said, sir. So you had a great deal of contribution towards our victory in 1999 Kargil War as well. You had contributed a great deal in your way. So there's a very famous letter by Captain Vijayan Thapad, which he wrote to his parents, to Colonel Vijayan Thapad and Veer Chakra, who was awarded a Veer Chakra posthumously. And this letter touched my heart. It was recited by our company commander in academy, Colonel J.S. Sodhi, to us. And that was the time, it was the year 2002, and I was a gentleman cadet at OTA. I heard my company commander reciting this letter, and I said, my goodness, I had goosebumps. I still remember, if I can recollect the letter, what he read out was, my loving Papa, Mummy, Granny, and Bertie. By the time you get this letter, I would be observing you all from the skies, enjoying the hospitality of Apsaras. I have no regrets. In fact,
Yeah.
if I were to be born again as a human, I would choose to join the army and serve my nation. Whichever organ needs to be taken should be taken and donated. Please donate some money to the orphanage and continue giving rupees 50 to Ruxana every month. And please go and meet Yogi Baba. I hope a picture of mine is kept in the Alpha Company Mandir next to Karni Mata. The sacrifice of these brave men should be remembered. Papa, you must be proud. Mama, so must you. Mama ji, please forgive me for anything wrong that I may have done. Anyhow, it's about time I go and join my clan of Dirty Dozen. My assault party has 12 chaps. Live life king size, yours, Robin, Jai Hind. So these were the words of Captain Vijayan Thapar, and that really inspired me as a cadet. And it
Yeah.
was so. Tell us a bit more about the 1999 war. I mean, I'm sure youngsters would like to hear. Some of them were just born at that time, who would be now joining the various academies or getting commissioned now. They would. That is a time. Those are stories which they will always remember. The story of one of, in fact, our Naga officer, Captain Kangruze, Mahavir Chakra, a very famous story, which really inspired us a lot, in fact. So tell us a bit more about your experience in 1999, sir.
Well, Mohammed, you're absolutely right. And as far as Vijayan Thapar is concerned, his father was from Maratha Light Infantry,
Yes,
17
sir.
Marathas. I know him well, Vinny Thapar. And what this youngster, who's a brave warrior, who is one of those whom will always remember, and our everlasting salute to him, that he had a feeling that maybe he will end up uh, giving his life for the nation. And people like him were the ones who did wonderfully well for us, saved the country an embarrassment which Pakistanis thought they will be able to manage and get through successfully. But it was the biggest disaster for Pakistan, as per what people are writing in Pakistan, and also what people like me have written earlier. So, really speaking, Muhammad, Army has got young leaders and middle pin leaders and senior leaders. Though it's a fashion to decry the senior leadership always, but they don't know the role some of us have played, whether it is Siachen, Kargil, or any other challenge that the nation has faced. So it's a complete teamwork, and success has been because this team has delivered always and every time for the nation.
Sir. Sir, I recall an incident, sir. Of course, you wouldn't remember that at all. In fact, it was 26th January 2008, sir. A day before you went as the governor of Arunachal Pradesh, sir. So I
Yeah.
was the official MC, the master of ceremonies from the army at the army house. General Deepak Kapoor had just taken over from you, sir, and I was the compare for the event at the army house. So we had built up a stage on a tree at the army house. It was a machan, and I was announcing from there. And then, of course, we saw you and the president, the prime minister, defense secretary. The top brass was there, sir, basically, and army commanders were there, and So, in fact, my parents were there, incidentally, sir. You had appointed him as your deputy chief, in fact. So they were there, and that's the time I came and met you, sir. I was on top of the tree. I saw you and Mrs. JJ walk in. I just couldn't. I had a cordless mic, luckily. I just couldn't resist. I just came down the tree. I conveyed my respect to you, and I went up back on the tree, sir. And of course, and it was, sir, each meeting with you, sir, it has proved to be very lucky for me in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. In fact, another meeting I'll recall, sir. It was May 2015. You had gone as the chief guest for the Founders Day of Lawrence School, Lovedale in Nilgiris. And that is a
Yes.
school I grew up in, sir. My sister, myself, my cousin, my nephew was head boy there, in fact. And so we have had the tradition of going to Lawrence School, Lovedale. So I met Mrs. JJ and you at the airport. In fact, I met you in school as well. And when you were leaving at Coimbatore Airport, we checked into the flight together. And that is then our common connection, sir. Like your nephew Navdeep is a very dear friend of mine, sir.
Yes.
And the tennis star, he featured in this film Khwab, which one of my relatives, in fact, Murad Saab, he had directed, sir. So coming back to it, sir, I would like to know first your experience at Lawrence School, Lovedale. That's my school. Miss Sangeeta Chima was the headmistress. She had invited you over, sir.
Mohammed, you are very lucky to have studied in that school. I really feel that students from that school are groomed so well that they will be leaders in the nation in any field that they choose. Also, I know your father very well. General Zoom Shah was a dear friend, and your mother, very graceful lady. So please, I want to take this occasion to say how much I appreciated both of them for their very, very good qualities, and for him as a great military leader, and later on as the vice chancellor. Now, you talked about my going as a governor. I used the army's principles of leadership as also in my appointment as the governor. I never knew that I will be appointed a governor, never went to anybody with my dossier, please give me a job or something. It came just like that. This is what destiny is all about. And there, when I went there, it was the 26th of January. Instead of attending the Republic Day parade here, I was flying in a chopper with my wife to Itanagar from Guwahati. And when we landed there, I was sworn in. I decided that I will try and be a people's governor. You know, when you take an oath of office in public service, you swear by the words given in the Constitution, and which end up by saying, to the best of my ability, I will work for the good and well being of the people. So, first one is I will uphold the Constitution of India, which, yes, we all do. But the second part, most political leaders, I would say not most, many of them forget that they also took an oath to do the best for the well being of the people. If they all did it, India would be much better today than what it is. Of course, nobody can stop India from becoming a world power, but we would have achieved that aim earlier. So, what I feel personally, that when I went around to far flung areas as a governor with my wife, wearing the local dress, eating their local food, and making friends with everybody, they said, here is a people's governor. I don't think that crown can be worn by many people who get that epithet of a people's governor. It was commonly referred to in my case, which I say is the greatest feather in my cap. And I also want to mention that during my time, the railway line was connecting Itanagar with the railways on the Assam plains. First time the railway connection, which came up in 4 or 5 years. The Bogeybill Bridge, I visited that. Four-lane highway going to Tawang, I visited that a number of times, pushing the BRO to hurry up and bringing their problems to the notice of the ministers concerned, the government concerned. Every time I came to Delhi, I had a mission. I'll meet one or two ministers in the cabinet and say, please do this for Arunachal. So they said, I am a proactive governor. So I said, I don't mind being called proactive or anything. I want to do a good job. I want to do something for the people. And it's a neglected area, neglected Northeast region. Let's do something for them. So that's how I approached my assignment as a governor. And I'm very happy people still remember my period as a governor.
Of course, sir, anyone who has served under you, be it in the army, be it even not, I'm not talking about as a chief only, even under you, basically, even your junior subaltern for that matter. I consider every single person as very, very lucky, sir. My father always says he's learned a lot from General J. Singh when he was under you, when he was your deputy chief, and when you were the chief in Delhi. And that's the time. In fact, you had come for our wedding, sir. My in-laws, my wife, everyone remembers you and ma'am very, very dearly. So it was a very. So I told you, sir, it's been, that's been my good luck, my lucky charm. Each time I interact with you, something good ends up happening to me. So that is faith when it comes to that, sir. So, sir, and I know I had promised you I will not take more than 10-15 minutes of yours, sir, but speaking with you has been so engaging. It's already been an hour, or sir, मालूम नहीं पड़ा बिल्कुल भी मेरे को where time flew with you. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, sir. There's so much more to talk to you, but I reckon that you must be busy, and I do not want to eat much into your time. You've always been very kind, gracious, and generous with your time, sir. Sir, thank you really very much. And any message you would like to give to the youth of a country who aspire to be like General J.J. Singh, sir?
Well, Muhammad, I'd like to finish off on a lighter note. A story how I met my wife and how we got married. I was a young captain in intelligence school, and a colleague of mine, Captain now retired Brigadier Ramesh Bhatia, we went to the USI club or RSI club, that was known as RSI in those days, for the New Year's dance. So we didn't have any partners. So we went to the bar and were having a drink and looking at people coming and going, and till we see a group of 4 or 5 people with one very pretty looking girl, and whatever it is. So they went and sat on their table. Looking at her, I said to my friend Ramesh, "Yaar, I want to dance with this girl." So he says, "No chance. We don't know them. We are no one." So anyway, I said, "Sharad laga le." So we had a bet, and the bet was a bottle of scotch. If I dance with her, he'll give me a bottle of scotch. If not, I will give him from my side. So I went up to her after another drink, and I said, "May I have the pleasure of a dance with you, miss?" So, she made a usual excuse, which sometimes the girls are told by their parents, "Don't dance with strangers. You don't know him at all, this and that." So she said, "I'm very tired," or something. She had just come back from dancing with someone. Anyway, I came back. He says, "Take out the bottle. I won." So I said, "No, it's not yet midnight. After that only I'll give you the bottle." So I had another drink, and the adventurer in me took another panga. And after the drink, I went and sat down next to her. I assumed that that lady is her mother, and I introduced myself to her properly, like we are taught in the NDA. "Madam, this, I'm so and so." Then at the end of it, I said, "Can I ask you for the pleasure of dancing with your lovely daughter?" So my wife to be was listening. So she says, "Yes, go ahead, please." So now she couldn't say no. So we danced, and we danced again till I was happy. Kudi bhi mil gayi or whiskey bhi mil gayi. I won both ways. So my friend doesn't
Lovely,
forget
sir.
it even till today. So that was part of my life. One of the things I have again described in my book, because it's an interesting phase of your life, how you met and how you got married. So we met on New Year's Eve. We got engaged on 6th February, and 9th of May we were married. Again, 9th of May. So 9
That,
comes in again.
that is so lovely to hear, sir. So lovely and so heartening to hear. Sir, since you want to end on a lighter note, so Ogden Nash says to keep your marriage brimming in the loving cup. Whenever you're right, rather, he says, whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up. So I.
Yes, of course, Mohammed. And I would say once again, I'm very pleased to be interacting with you today on this platform. And I'm sure your viewers will like what we have said and shared between us, which also is supposed to be an interaction which they will be happy to hear. And with this, I wish you all the best. And I also say, God bless our country. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. Jan, sir. An honor to be with you, sir.